Greetings, I am Erin Patten, metaphysical master in a millennial age, and it is my life's purpose to guide you and organizations along an enlightened path. So I invite you to sit comfortably and tune in as I welcome you to the Meta Business Millennial, where we get the real conversations you won't get in the boardroom so that we understand this is exactly the path we need to be on in order to grow, evolve, and thrive. Greetings, I am Erin Patten, also known as Master L, and welcome to the Meta Business Millennial podcast. I am so honored to be with you all this Meta Monday, this day after Mother's Day, and just welcome all of you. If you already haven't, go ahead and subscribe to my channel at I am Erin Patten. Like this video, share it with friends, comment, and do all the things to engage so that I know that you're tapped in. I can engage back with you. And of course, we can share this message with the collective because we all need this energy. We all need this high level consciousness in this day and time, people. Okay. So now that I've gotten that out the way, I really want to just jump in because I feel like today is going to be such a robust episode. And I invite you all, if you're in the room, to go ahead and leave comments and stuff so that if you are resonating with things that I'm saying, or if something like this happened to you, because I titled this episode How to Survive the Dark Night of the Soul, because we all have moments, we all have periods in our lives where we really feel like we are in the depths of darkness. We feel like we're in the cave. We feel like we're alone, and there is certainly light at the tunnel. I just want to encourage you, for those that may be in this period right now, there is absolutely the brightest light at the end of the tunnel. And, we go through these dark nights of the souls, if you will, to really grow our souls, because we have to have that contrast. And just wanting to explain sort of the why before I get into the story. We have to have this contrast in order to grow. It's like no pain, no gain. Like when you're going to the gym, you have to have the tension, the tightness, and the muscles for them to actually grow. And it's the same for our soul. It's the same for our life journey. We have to have the struggles in order to get to our dreams, so that we can learn new skills, so that we can eliminate maybe people or situations in our lives that no longer serve us. But we have these experiences so that we know that it's time for us to get to the next level. Let's put it that way. And I'm really inspired to talk about today's story because it's Mother's Day, because yesterday was Mother's Day. And as a mother, I experienced some really hard, challenging things that many of you may relate to, many of you may not. And I actually haven't shared it a lot on this podcast. I might have, like, on the first episode and on another episode, but I really don't get into the conversation about me and my son's journey till now, for many reasons. I felt like, to be honest, there was a lot of shame for me around telling the story. I was ashamed that how could something so horrendous, how could something literally, I called it so ghetto, happen to me? I was ashamed because I didn't have the courage to do it differently, which is really crazy when how we judge ourselves when we're going through hard times, because we only can operate at the best level that we can operate at. And I had shame because maybe I even doubted my own success or my own abilities as a mother. And I think this resonates with a lot of people, not just women, not just mothers, is that self-doubt, that self-judgment that really precludes our success. And just let me get into the story, y'all, and then we can talk about the assessment and the analyzation after. When my son was born, beautiful baby, beautiful, healthy baby, I breastfed him. And it's so funny because I posted a reel yesterday kind of showing the progression from pregnancy and breastfeeding. Like, I breastfed him multiple times a day, every day. And I would say around 8-9 months, when we were, I was working on transitioning him into like eating more table foods and, just like, trying new things, I was noticing that he wasn't taking too well to the table foods, even though they were like organic fruits and vegetables and really, great, products. And he just wasn't doing well with it. And then and he was spitting up, he was throwing up more, and it was just really strange. But I was continue to breastfeed him because really, like, children can survive on breast milk, for a while, especially babies, excuse me, can survive on breast milk. And by the time he turned one, and I must add, at around that 7, 8 month period, me and his dad, split up and we're living in separate places. We were also sharing visitation. It was a very chaotic time for me. It was especially a very chaotic time for my son. His name is Harlow. And this ultimately is likely what contributed to the instability in his digestive system, was likely the instability, the chaotic nature of his environment. And by the time he turned one, he was really not, doing well. Actually, the doctors had um, designated him failure to thrive, and we were really kind of, and I especially was really concerned that he wasn't taking to the food well. And of course, at the same time, me and his dad got in the biggest argument we ever got into. And he was holding Harlow and yelling and screaming on me, threatening me for at least an hour. And Harlow got really, really sick after this. I'm talking like fever and just really was throwing up really bad. And after that, his vomiting just got even more severe. And this is when I completely just like focused 100% on how to heal Harlow. We went to see his doctor. They were giving him the Pediasure or whatever. He was throwing that up. And so I took him to a Chinese acupuncturist and herbalist doctor. And we were doing weekly treatments of acupuncture, of herbs, because at the core, literally the acupuncture, the Chinese medical doctor walked in, and he looked at Harlow and was able to diagnose his deficiencies and say that this child is suffering from severe fear and anxiety at 1 years old. And I know a lot of people listening to this may not be able to resonate, may not believe me, and that's totally fine. Because everyone is incredibly entitled to their own opinions. However, I know my life and I know my child, and I 100% agreed and aligned with that Chinese medical herbalist and doctor around the diagnosis of my son and what he was experiencing, because I was experiencing it. Severe anxiety, severe fear, waking up with night terrors, and constant vomiting. And this lasted actually maybe for like a good 6 months up to a year. And however, in this acute time, I was also, of course, trying to manage custody with his father, because I firmly believed at that time that we should try and I should try to cultivate a really good relationship with his dad. Because children need their parents is what my mind was, oriented around, despite the nature of the parents, and we'll get into that later. um and when it got time for Harlow's dad to get back custody with him after a couple months of us trying to make resolution and do our mediation and get our agreement together around custody, by the time he got Harlow, Harlow still was significantly underweight. He still was failure to thrive. And instead of sitting with me, talking with me, like how I'm sharing this story, understanding what we've been going through, reasoning through what could possibly be going wrong with this child, he immediately called Child Protective Services on me. He accused me of malnourishing and starving Harlow, my son, and they allowed his dad to keep him because of those false accusations and also unevidenced accusations. He admitted Harlow into an emergency room, and Harlow was in hospital for 3 to 4 days still throwing up multiple times a day, even under the watch of the CPS investigator, under the watch of the team. And if you check the medical records, which I had to do later in court, Harlow ended up losing weight, more weight, while in the care of Texas Children's in their intensive unit. And so you can imagine. Then I was also forbidden to see Harlow while he was there because his dad didn't want me to see him. And I went through this kind of separation from Harlow when he was 14 months for over 30 days. And when you talk about dark night of the soul, these were dark nights of my soul. Nights where I just couldn't even cry. I actually couldn't even emote. I had no emotions because I was so dead on the inside. I was so mad at myself for how did I even let him get this sick? Like mad that my son was even sick. Um, I was mad that I couldn't, convince his dad any different. I couldn't have a conversation with his dad. I couldn't have a conversation with my friends. His dad had gone around and convinced my friends that I needed an intervention, that I was crazy. So it felt like the whole world was against me. I would go to CPS. I wrote them multiple emails. I wrote them letters. I would go to their offices and try to plead my case. The lady would look at me like I was crazy. And so, how does one get through something like this? This was what I even had to, you know, I literally would wake up every day. I would go for walks. I would cry. I would listen to gospel music. I would listen to Abraham Hicks. I would journal. I would talk about like, and this is when I talk about the moments when I said I hate myself. These are the moments when I was writing in my journal how much I hate myself. And really not understanding why I had created this hell. When I speak in previous episodes about the hell that I was in, this particularly is the hell that I speak of. And my son used to sleep in the crib. Actually, it was my crib. He used to sleep in the crib next to me in my bedroom. And I remember waking up in the morning and looking over at his crib every day and just him not being there. And the emptiness and the sadness that that I mean, I don't even have words, y'all. I'm still like processing this years later. And then having to go to court, actually, so I ended up having to go to court because um the agreement that we had mediated actually had not been signed by a judge. So because our custody agreement hadn't been signed by a judge, there was no way I could enforce getting my child back. There was no grounds for enforcement. So actually, his dad had claimed that the agreement was falsified, and I lied to him. So I actually had to go to court to just prove that the agreement was, secure, to even get a judge to sign it, so I can even try to get my child back. So y'all, this is how the legal system work in Texas. And so I go to court. This was after that, 30-day period because it took us that long just to get on the books. And I get there, and of course, they bring Harlow to the courtroom, and his dad has Harlow with his friends, and his friends won't even allow me to hold my baby. Like they're just like standing there, like it's their child. And I just wave at Harlow, and of course, Harlow's a baby, so he doesn't, wave back. It's been a few weeks. He's just in his own world. And that was like the biggest stab in the heart to see your own child and not even be able to hold him and touch him, and people thinking that they have ownership over him more than you. And I feel like that actually is what really put the nail in the coffin on my insecurity around motherhood and actually my rights to even have Harlow. I really questioned that at that time. And went into the courtroom and essentially was able to prove that the agreement was done in good, with the best of intentions. There was no fraud, there, and there was CPS officers there. There was friends of his there talking down on me. Everybody was there, including his attorney, to speak to how horrible of a mother I was, and that I put needles in him because of the acupuncture, and I gave him herbs, and I fed him organic food. These things were said to me in court as poor motherhood. And and now, of course, like, I'm just so strong and so different, like, it would be absurd now, but at the time, I was new to my life, to this healthier lifestyle, this organic lifestyle, and I really didn't expect it to be that, that I don't know, that harsh for me. And so when I was able to, walk out of the courtroom and at least get the agreement signed and have some sort of stipulations around the custody, then I was able to get Harlow back in a couple days. And that's really when I would say sort of like the journey began of kind of building all of that I felt like I lost in that dark night, if you will. Because Harlow's different. He really has to learn me again. He's lost complete trust, and despite what people think about babies and their development, they are very conscious beings, and they have emotions. They just aren't able, obviously, to express them the same way we are. So he has trust issues. He has resentment. Mommy, you left me. And me feeling unworthy, feeling judgmental of myself, feeling insecure of myself. I'm also questioning how to even interact with this baby. And that went on for some time. In addition to that, being able to navigate again all of the judgments that I placed on myself. And so I say all this story to say that we go through things. And I was just sharing my story of the dark night of the soul to be able to forge us into more integrous, more compassionate, and more powerful beings. Because when we can walk through hell and survive, then that makes us what? Gods and goddesses. And if we walk through multiple hells, then we just amplify that God goddess energy for ourselves. And so I'm not saying necessarily to welcome hard times or to call forth challenging situations in your life. However, when you are faced with challenges, when you are faced with very dark nights of the soul, understand and understand that these are opportunities for your growth. Feel into all the sadness, feel in all the depressive thoughts, feel into all the suicidal thoughts. I mean, I can't even lie to you guys how many times I woke up and was like, God, why am I still here? Literally. Like, why don't you just take me? This pain is unbearable. I can't even, I couldn't even fathom why I was still even alive. And then also layer on top of that the health challenges my mom was dealing with because the shock of Harlow being gone sent her into a situation, and she was in the emergency room literally at the same time Harlow was. I remember walking back and forth between the hospital between Harlow and my mom. And these are opportunities and experiences that forge us into more powerful beings, strong beings, loving beings, compassionate beings. Because when we can overcome these really hard experiences, when we can overcome these really hard challenges and still have that kindness in our heart, that love in our heart, it is felt. It is felt not only by those that went through it with you, particularly for me in my situation, Harlow. Like, he is so grateful to me and respectful of me and loving of me, knowing that I'll go to the ends of the earth to courts multiple times. I'm going back to court in a couple weeks over the same different situation, but similar. That I will continue to do what's required of me to protect, nurture, and create a safe, harmonious environment for him. And I want to use those words as opposed to fight. Because I know a lot of times people feel like I got to fight for my love, I got to fight for my children, but fighting, like I got to fight for justice. Fighting is the same energy as what the oppressors are giving to us. And we're giving it right back in terms of the fight. So when you're feeling oppressed, when you're feeling betrayed, the energy that you give back is not the same. It is of definitely a higher order. And that energy comes from you. I'm just trying to think exactly the words. It is a knowing of yourself. It is a knowing of your truth. It is a knowing where you stand, what you stand for, what you won't stand for. It is a setting of the boundaries. When the boundaries aren't met, it is an enforcement of boundaries. That's how you respond. Very strategically, very aligned, and very consciously. Because there is nothing greater to fear if you're coming with oppressive energy than consciousness, awareness of self, and then especially awareness of how I've been wronged, of how I've been transgressed, of how I've been betrayed, and then seeking that resolution from God, period. You can absolutely use the courts. The courts are necessary in some instances. For example, for me right now, I'm using the courts. However, when we step into that sovereignty as a God man, as a goddess woman, we operate with different laws, and that's God's law. And that's what people speak to when they talk about what goes around comes around and karma, and people get what they pay for because God always brings everything into balance. And people who are transgressed on, oppressed, absolutely will receive their due rewards and their due blessings. It is always written in scripture of this. And we must trust this, especially in our living lives, in our living, breathing lives. As we're going through circumstances that weigh us down, as we're going through circumstances that really challenge us, and especially at the hands of someone that we love or that we trusted, where we're feeling betrayed. It is not about getting revenge. Mm-mm. It is not about fighting back. No, it's about making sure you're as pure as possible. You're in as much truth as possible, and then allowing the energies to stack in your favor. And that does take time. And that actually is the work. When I talk about when you're going through these dark nights of the soul, the work is really pouring into yourself. As I mentioned before, for me, I was waking up, even though I was filled with so much sadness, I was waking up in the morning, going for walks, uplifting myself, crying, literally crying, walking in the sunshine, praying, praising God for what I had in that moment, lifting my vibration as much as possible, speaking over myself, my affirmations, even though I'm writing in my journal, I hate myself, even though I'm writing all these releasing all of this judgment from my being, I had to also refill myself with higher thoughts, higher words. And this is absolutely a practice that I continue to this day. To this day, my affirmation list has just grown. I just have many more affirmations about my body, about my discipline, about my money, about my family, about everything, actually. I really am reprogramming my whole being because the way I was raised, and even that was just three years ago, my thought patterns were very different. My thought patterns were almost very punishing to me, to myself. And so many of us carry these, I would say, just incorrect programs and thought patterns about ourselves. And we must be very conscious around reprogramming them and rewriting them so that we speak higher to ourselves. We speak more lovingly to ourselves. We hold more space for our mistakes. Come on now. Lord knows I needed that space. And as we hold that space for ourselves, it creates the opportunity for us to grow and heal and find gratitude in these really dark times, these really challenging circumstances. Because, you know, and this is something people always say, when you're going through hard times and it's hard to hear, but it's like God will never put anything on you that you can't handle. And that's a truth. Ooh, if that ain't the God's truth. God will never put anything on you that you cannot handle. Will not put any more on you than you can handle. So you receive that as a lesson, and then with gratitude, even if you're feeling angry, if you're feeling resentful, if you're feeling betrayed, this is how you go about growing yourself, growing your soul. And I really hope that, I feels like this is coming to an end. And I'm so glad that it didn't go super over time with the story, because I really wanted to get into the analysis of it and how we work through a lot of the hard aspects of our lives, the most challenging aspects of our lives, the dark nights of the soul, where we're feeling alone, we're feeling betrayed, we're feeling neglected, we're feeling pressured, we're feeling oppressed. There is light at the end of the tunnel. And it's incumbent upon you to spark that light. You are the lighter. You are the plug, because you are a direct connection to God, source. And so by plugging in to who you are, what you're doing, and knowing and trusting in the vision you've set for your life, which is critical, you will absolutely get there. The end. And oh my God, that was such a confessional for me moment. This was a whole confessional. Inspired by Mother's Day, because I literally cried before I posted my reel yesterday, y'all. I was really looking at where I came from as a pregnant, woman, to where I am today, as a mother of a toddler, and just so proud of myself. I literally cried in the mirror and told myself, I'm so proud of you, Erin. Like, you have done such a good job. And we have to do that to ourselves more often. Okay. Cry, celebrate ourselves, post something on social media for yourself, and look at it over and over again and tell yourself in the mirror how proud you are. Everyone should do that. It feels so good. And then toast champagne with your friends, even better, which I got to do yesterday. And so I am really, really thankful that you all shared time and space with me. I see a lot of you in the comments. Thanks for sharing, Master L. Thank you for that. Hope you had amazing Mother's Day. Thank you. And also, I see some comments from LinkedIn. You look stunning. You're shining. Congrats on what you're doing. Thank you so much, Kenza. It has been a long time. And to all of you other folks out there listening to the replay or watching live that didn't get a chance to comment, thank you so much for tuning in. This was a very special episode for me. Definitely share it with your friends if you feel like someone could be inspired by this story. And certainly, of course, follow me at I am Erin Patten. Also at Meta Business Millennial Podcast has its own handle. And until next week, peace and love. This is the Meta Business Millennial Podcast. Did you really love this episode of the Meta Business Millennial Podcast? Well, I am honored, and I appreciate you subscribing, leaving a review, and sharing it with your friends, because your feedback allows us to co-create more enlightened conversations. And if you're interested in growing your soul now, head over to my website, erinpatten.com, to find all the show notes, links, and free resources to get your energy activated today. In the meantime, stay bright, my friends. Much love and light. Peace.